In 2007, Call of Duty 4 took a bold step, moving away from the well-travelled World War II setting that had long been the standard for first-person war shooters of the time. With intense stealth segments, a fairly grounded story, and some settings and scenarios clearly inspired by famous war films of the time, it was a massive success. Since then, the Call of Duty franchise has taken us to some pretty strange places, incorporating some light sci-fi inspiration with Black Ops and Advanced Warfare, and completely jumping the shark with the spacefaring Infinite. 12 years after the original, Infinity Ward have brought the series back to its roots, with an unexpected but highly anticipated reboot. Has this step back given the franchise the boost it so sorely needed? In my opinion, absolutely yes. Let's start with the campaign. First of all, there actually is one this year. Last year, Black Ops 4 decided, for better or worse, to drop the campaign mode altogether and focus instead on bringing their own version of a battle royale to the table. This time around, campaign is back, and it's probably one of the best yet in the Call of Duty franchise. It's a much more concentrated story at only around 5 to 6 hours long in my playthrough, but has plenty to offer in the way of action set pieces. As per usual, it has a few moments that feel designed to make you feel uncomfortable, but they aren't so gratuitous that it ever feels too forced. It reflects the state of warfare in the modern age. Battlefields aren't clear-cut arenas that draw obvious borders, and lines between good and bad can quickly become blurred. There's nothing quite so controversial as the infamous No Russian mission, but civilians will inevitably get caught in the crossfire over the course of the game and offer you no choice but to bear witness. The conflict sees you assisting an uprising against Russian forces in one fictional part of the world, while getting to the bottom of a terrorist plot elsewhere. While the pacing can feel a little breakneck at times, it delivers some truly memorable moments, both reminiscent of the series' past highlights and some new original ones too. There's a mission with obvious callbacks to All Gillied Up, another moment really similar to the AC-130 mission, and one that switches things up completely. This one sees you guide an unarmed civilian out of a terrorist-occupied building using nothing but timing and directions as seen through security cameras. However, the missions I enjoyed the most were the ones that really turned the pacing down. These experiences involve a much more calculated approach, where methodically moving from room to room and clearing quietly is the name of the game. Night vision goggles and silencers are a must for many of these, where new features like opening doors slowly and mounting weapons around the corners can make all the difference. Being a Call of Duty game, there are still plenty of open shooting gallery-style missions, where you'll find yourself just ploughing steadily through wave after wave of enemies to reach an objective point. These aren't bad by any stretch, just nothing we haven't done before many times over. They could be a touch more interesting to play if the AI was a little better though. In true COD fashion, enemies will bunch up down corridors, rush needlessly out of cover, and just generally act as though survival instincts skip their generation. If you really fancy it, you can now play against said AI on an all-new difficulty setting titled Realism. It's not actually a new difficulty as such, but essentially veteran mode with the HUD switched off. But it is more immersive, especially given the gorgeous graphics. This is hands down the best looking and sounding Call of Duty to date. Running on an all-new engine, the facial animations look spectacular, possibly some of the most lifelike I've seen in a game this generation. But this isn't without its own drawbacks. The frame rate can chug a little during cutscenes, but it remains to be seen if this is a hardware limitation or just an optimization issue. On that note, let's move over to multiplayer. Since the beta a little while back, it's been a controversial topic. Changes to the overall speed and time to kill, along with a few other tweaks to the overall feel, have split the player base a little. Personally, I quite enjoy the move towards a more tactical approach. It suits the overall vibe they've gone for in the single player, and with the sci-fi elements now stripped right back, it makes a lot of sense to bring down the overall pacing. Even with these small changes to the formula, ultimately it still feels and plays a lot like any other Call of Duty game. Matches are fast and intense, with kill streaks quickly turning the map into a hectic firing range of bullets, explosives, and various gases. Progression is immensely satisfying, with plenty of guns and gadgets giving you near limitless ways to blast through everyone you meet. The customization gives players plenty of ways to make their arsenal really feel their own. There are loads of colours and camo patterns to throw in the usual flair, a huge wealth of attachments allowing you to fine-tune the feel of your weapon, and much more. Activision have promised that all new maps will be free and that there won't be any loot boxes this time around. But this may be a preemptive move to counter any new legislation rather than anything pro-consumer as such. So we'll have to wait and see what the future inevitably brings as far as microtransactions go. Modern Warfare also brings a few new modes to the table, with Cyber Attack, an evolution of Search and Destroy, NVG, a new experience revolving heavily around the night vision goggles, Gunfight, a 2v2 mode that feels somewhere between Capture the Flag and Gun Game, and finally the biggest mode, Ground War. This mode feels a lot like Call of Duty's own take on Conquest from the Battlefield series, with higher overall player counts, multiple objectives to capture and use as spawn points, and a number of vehicles to get around the map with. The likeness isn't subtle. That isn't to say it's a bad thing. I personally really enjoy the way larger game modes like this make you rely more on tactics and coordination, but given how little attention this series has paid to such styles of gameplay up until now, it might be a while before players adjust to this in a Call of Duty game. As far as the maps go, they've also come under a little fire from players after a few changes. Again, they feel like a return to older times with their design, moving away from the now repetitive 3-lane structure of recent entries and more towards winding hallways and strategic hotspots. This places less emphasis on individual player skill and more onto their environmental awareness and adaptability. Modern Warfare also sees the return of the cooperative Spec Ops mode, with a range of missions to team up and take on with friends. Some of these are tough as nails and require a mix of solid coordination and on-the-fly thinking to come out on top. Currently though, this difficulty feels somewhat artificial, being largely derived purely from the insane number of enemies thrown at you. But they make for a nice challenge and a bit of a distraction from the rest of the game, and it will be interesting to see if Infinity Ward expand it with new missions in the future. This has definitely been the Call of Duty that a lot of us have been waiting for. After falling further and further away from what originally made the series stand out in the early days, it feels like they've brought it back to the boots-on-the-ground experience they've been promising for so long. With a solid campaign and blistering multiplayer experience, Modern Warfare doesn't just ask for your attention, it demands it.